Hello, thanks for joining me for our story time this week. If you watched our science video on Tuesday, you'll know that we talked about Moses as a baby and how his mother did what was best for him and put him in a basket and he ended up with the Pharaoh's daughter and was raised by the Pharaoh's daughter. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about what Moses did when he grew up. So we're going to read, our story is called Moses and the Great Escape. Moses grew up as a prince in Egypt. He knew that his real family were Israelites and that all his people were slaves. One day he decided to go and see for himself just how they were getting on. For as long as he could remember, Moses had lived in a palace. He was rich, life was good. But I'm not truly Egyptian, he reminded himself. My parents were Israelites. In fact, I would like to know more about my own people, even though they are only slaves. He was shocked to see them. The slaves looked so unhappy, so thin, so tired. The Egyptians in charge of them looked mean. They shouted and flicked their whips. One slave master hit a man so hard he fell down. Moses was angry. "How dare you treat my people like that?" he said. He hit the slave master really hard. To his dismay, the slave master fell down dead. Moses glanced around. What a disaster! What could he do? Frantically, he buried the body in the sand and hurried away. The next day, he went back to the same place. He saw two Israelites fighting and told them to stop. "Who are you to say that?" they replied. "Are you going to kill us like you killed the Egyptian?" Moses knew he had been seen. In fear for his life, he fled. In the faraway wilderness, he became a shepherd. Then, one day, he saw a strange sight. The thorn bush in front of him was bright with flames, but none of it was burning. Moses went closer. "Take your shoes off," said a voice from heaven. "You are on holy ground." It could only be God. Amazed, Moses did what he was told. "Moses," said God, "I want you to go and rescue my people. Take them away from Egypt. Take them to a land where they can make homes for themselves." Moses protested. Moses argued. Moses fretted. "The king will never believe me," he said. "I always stumble over my words." "You can ask your brother Aaron to do the talking," said God. "Now go." The two brothers went to see the king of Egypt. He looked at them through narrow eyes and waved at them to speak. "The God of Israelites says this to you. Let my people go." "What are you talking about?" sneered the king. "I didn't know anything about the so-called God." To his courtiers, he said, "Let's make life more difficult for the slaves. Make them work even harder." Time and again, Moses and Aaron came back to tell the king God's message. Time and again, the king sent them away. God sent disasters to warn him. First, the river turned blood red, and then thousands of frogs came hopping onto the land. Then came a swarm of gnats, then flies. Then farm animals all got ill and died. Then the people got horrible boils. The weather turned to hail. Swarms of locusts flew in from the dry desert and ate every bit of grass and leaf. Finally, the sky turned dark as night for 3 days. "I'm still not letting anyone go," said the king. God spoke to Moses again. "The people will go free. Tell everyone to get ready. Tell them to cook a lamb for a farewell meal and to mark their houses with the blood of the lamb. In the unmarked houses of the Egyptians, the angel of death will stop and the firstborn son will die." When this disaster came, the king changed his mind. Moses led his people out of Egypt. They had just reached a place of marshy pools and reeds when the king changed his mind again. "I want my slaves back," he raged. "Send my fastest chariots and go and get them now." The Israelites saw the army and knew they were trapped between the enemy and the water. God spoke to Moses. "Hold out your arm." As he did so, God sent a wind that blew a path through the sea of reeds. The Israelites crossed to safety. The Egyptian chariots all sank into the mud. "God has rescued us," shouted Moses, and all the Israelites began to celebrate. So that's a pretty cool story. And when it talked about all of the different things that God sent to try and get the king to change his mind, those are called the 10 plagues. And so we read them all, but I wonder which one you think would be the hardest. There are gnats and flies, all the farm animals that fed them got sick and they died. They got boils on their skin, and the weather turned really bad. And then there are locusts that came and ate everything, and then the sky turned dark as night. And then finally, the angel of death went over, and all of the firstborn sons of the Egyptians died. So I wonder which one you think would be the scariest. I think having all the firstborn sons die would be pretty scary, but also the locusts would probably be pretty scary too. I don't really like locusts. But so that's a little bit more about Moses. And then the Israelites, now that they've escaped Egypt, then they are on a journey for lots and lots of time to ultimately end up in the promised land where God leads them. So I hope you've enjoyed our story today, and you remember, just like the king took a long time to change his heart, sometimes things take a little while, but in the end, God will work through them. So I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next week.